Hey everyone! ChatGPT Taylor aka Taylor here. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is something a little bit different, but now that the finalists for Season 3 of Disventure Camp have been chosen, I feel that this is the perfect time to talk about who each of the eliminated campers plan to support in the finale. As we remember from the past 2 seasons, each eliminated camper gets to pledge their support for one finalist, and each finalist gets to pick an eliminated camper to help them in the final challenge. Having an eliminated camper pledge their allegiance to a finalist gives the finalists a pretty clear idea over who is willing to help them win the final challenge. Unless you're like James and make so many enemies that you end up with no helpers at first glance. And with the motel episode premiering in a few days, I think this is the perfect time for me to predict who each eliminated camper would support. I'll go through each eliminated camper in the order that they were eliminated, who I think they'll support in the finale, and why I think they would support them over the other 2 options. And with that, let's get started. Before I begin, make sure to like and subscribe if this video is to your liking, and make sure to comment down below if there's anything that you would like to see going forward. To kick this off, let's start with last season's winner turned first boot, it's James. James is in a unique position where there's a reason for him to hate each of the finalists. After all, Jake was the one who campaigned to get James out back in episode 2 of this season, Rhea was the one who left James's boyfriend to die back in the season 2 finale, and Allie was the swing vote that ultimately caused James's boyfriend to get blindsided at the final 7 of this season. But despite this, I think the choice is clear. I think James easily supports Jake to win. And this is solely because Jake and Aiden managed to become friendly with each other prior to Aiden's blindside. So I can imagine a scenario where Aiden persuades James to support Jake, since Jake at least tried to keep Aiden in the game at the final 7. And considering that the other 2 options are the girl who tried to kill Aiden and the girl who voted against Aiden at his elimination, I don't think it would take much to convince him. Next is Lake. This one is a bit uncertain, but I'm mostly confident in my choice. I think Lake also chooses to support Jake. Since Lake is really close with Aiden, and Aiden is really close with Jake, I think Lake eagerly follows Aiden's lead and supports Jake in the finale. Additionally, Lake also spent a decent amount of time in episode 11 of this season trying to convince Aiden to give Jake another chance, so it's at least clear that Lake likes Jake enough to believe that he can be a better person. And it's not like the other 2 finalists have clear bonds with Lake. After all, Rhea indirectly caused Lake's elimination back in season 2 and directly caused the elimination of one of Lake's friends in the same season. And when adding this to Rhea leaving Aiden to die, I doubt that Lake would support Rhea. And as for Allie, I don't think Allie and Lake ever officially talked. We know that Lake and Tess are friends, but there's no proof that Lake and Allie ever interacted. Their only real interaction was when Lake and Allie kissed back in episode 3 of season 2. And let's face it, I think we all would like to forget that this ever happened. But anyways, Lake supports Jake, end of story. To move on to someone quicker, let's go to Miriam. This one is extremely obvious and we don't need to spend time on it. Obviously, Miriam is going to support Allie. After all, Miriam mentioned in episode 1 of season 3 that Hunter and Allie were her favorite campers from season 2, so I think it makes sense for Miriam to support the gamer girl. Don't worry, I'm just kidding. Miriam will obviously support Jake. Her and Jake went through a lot back in season 1, including sharing an emotional moment about the loss of their loved ones. And as we were told this season, Miriam used some of her prize money to help Jake move out, so she clearly cares about Jake. There should be no surprise that Miriam supports Jake in the finale. Moving on, we have Hunter. And this one is easy as well. Hunter will absolutely support Allie in the finale. Allie is Hunter's girlfriend, so I think it's pretty self-explanatory as to why Hunter would support her. Even though they had their fair share of fights while on the pink team, Allie clearly cares enough about Hunter to defend him against Jake's criticisms, and from what I've heard regarding the greetings, I don't think Hunter hates Allie for doing some villainous actions in the last third of the season. Sorry to all the Huntake fans out there, but I think this is one lock supporter for Allie. And I think it's very likely that Allie picks Hunter as her helper for the final challenge. Next is Fiore, and much like James, I think Fiore has a reason to not like any of the finalists. I doubt that Fiore thinks very highly of Jake since he's shown himself to be very easy to manipulate. Fiore probably doesn't have a high of an opinion of Allie since Hunter spent so much time yelling at her for being weak in challenges. And Fiore might not like Rhea since Rhea refused to help Fiore in episode 5 after the villains alliance got exposed. Although I can imagine a scenario where Fiore just sits off to the side and refuses to support anyone. If Fiore is forced to support someone, I think she supports Rhea. This is solely because both of them are villains, and I think Fiore might admire the fact that Rhea was so willing to injure Connor in episode 18. Speaking of villains, we have Ellie next. And Ellie is in a weird position where she doesn't have a strong connection with any of the finalists. I don't think Ellie ever had any one-on-one conversations with Allie or Rhea, considering that they were on different seasons and on different teams. And I'm pretty sure that Ellie and Jake don't have a strong bond, considering that Ellie spent a decent portion of the season trying to antagonize him by getting Tom and Aiden to get closer together. I think it's clear that Ellie's choice is between Allie and Rhea, but I'm not 100% certain as to who she would pick. But of course, I have to make a guess, and right now, my guess is that Ellie will support Allie. A lot of this is because Allie is in direct opposition to Jake, and I think Ellie would take the side of whoever is opposing Jake. Following Ellie, we have Tess. And much like Hunter, this is an easy choice. Tess will absolutely support Allie in the finale. Even if Tess doesn't directly approve of Allie's recent choices, I find it hard to believe that Tess would abandon her at this point. Tessa's role this season was to be a support character to some of the other campers, so I think it would be a bit out of character for Tess to abandon Allie after all of their history together. And if Allie ends up losing in the finale, Tess will likely be the one to console Allie and assure her that they still care about her. Even though some people hate Allie so much that they want to see Tess and Hunter get together, I just don't see it happening, leaving Tess as one of Allie's strongest supporters. Speaking of support characters, let's talk about Ashley. This is another obvious one. Ashley will definitely support Jake in the finale. Even though Jake was one of the main causes of Ashley's elimination, it didn't seem like that dissuaded Ashley from supporting Jake afterwards. So I find it hard to believe that any of Jake's recent actions would make Ashley jump ship now. Ashley pledged to stick by Jake even if it was to her own detriment, and this is no different. Ashley should be a lock for one of Jake's supporters, and I think it's likely that Jake picks her to be his helper in the final challenge. Moving on to another one of Jake's allies, it's Tom. Again, I think it's very likely that Tom supports Jake in the finale. I don't recall him ever talking directly to Allie or Rhea, and since Tom and Jake seemed to patch up their relationship a bit by the time Tom was eliminated, I don't think it's a stretch to say that Tom would support Jake in the finale. And there's an outside chance that Jake picks Tom as his helper in the final challenge, which would give them a bit of an opportunity to really talk through their feelings and figure out where they stand. It may not be the best time, but it's an opportunity nonetheless. For the next one, I'm going to skip over Yul for a bit and go straight to Gabby. Don't worry, I'll get to Yul later. But for Gabby, I'm not 100% certain on who she picks, but if I had to bet, I would probably bet on Allie. This is mostly because I think Ellie likely supports Allie in the finale, and I think it's likely that Gabby would want to stick with Ellie, so I think it's reasonable for Gabby to support Allie. And it helps that Gabby doesn't really have a strong bond with Rhea or Jake, so I doubt there's a strong motivator for Gabby to support either of them. Moving on to Aiden, I think this one is pretty clear. Aiden will more than likely support Jake in the finale. Jake and Aiden became pretty close friends by the time Aiden was voted out, so I think it makes sense for Aiden to give Jake his support. And when taking into account that Rhea left Aiden to die back in season 2 and that Allie was the swing vote that caused Aiden to get voted out, I think it's clear that Jake is the finalist who has probably done the least to hurt Aiden, even though they did go through a rough patch in the middle of the season. Now we go on to Alec. To be honest, I'm not sure who Alec would support. I'm pretty sure that Alec won't support Rhea since he doesn't seem to like her anymore, and considering that Rhea brutally injured one of Alec's closest friends, I don't see how he could justify supporting her. But between Allie and Jake, neither of them have a strong enough bond with Alec for it to be clear on who he supports. I actually can't even think of a moment where Allie and Alec spoke to each other. If you can remember a moment where they did, please comment it down below. But for now, I have to make a choice, and I think Alec would narrowly support Jake. Partially because Alec talked to Jake more than he talked to Allie, and Jake at least stuck with Connor for a decent portion of the game, so that wouldn't hurt Alec's opinion of him. Speaking of Connor, I'm going to skip over Grett in the order and talk about Connor next. This one is pretty clear to me. Even though I can imagine a scenario where he supports Allie, I think Connor will end up supporting Jake in the finale. Jake and Connor had some pretty insightful conversations throughout the series, and even though Jake regressed and lashed out at Connor in episode 18, Connor seemed to brush it off enough to acknowledge Jake with a smile. I think this one is a safe bet, and if anything, is definitely not supporting Rhea. Especially after everything that's happened. Now to finish off the list, we have Grett and Yul. The reason why I'm discussing them both in the same section is because I feel like due to their breakup, they would want to be apart from each other, which would only happen if they're supporting different finalists. For Yul, I genuinely don't think he would want to actively support anyone. Based on Yul's hate rant after being voted out, I think it's clear that Yul doesn't like any of them, so it's not an easy choice there. Grett sort of has the opposite problem, because I think there's a reason for Grett to support any of the finalists. Grett and Allie seem to have a good bond, and even though Allie was the swing vote that eliminated Grett, Grett praised the move as being good. Grett and Rhea also seem to have a good bond, and it's worth noting that Rhea stayed loyal to Grett to the end, which could be the difference maker. And with Jake, I don't think that he and Grett had a horrible bond with each other either, even though they voted against each other in episode 17. But alas, I have to choose a finalist for each camper. For Grett, I'm leaning towards her picking Allie, since Grett is one of the few campers in the series who praises the strategic game, so if Grett admires Allie's decision to blindside her at the final 5, that might be enough to earn Grett's support. However, I could also see Grett supporting Jake, since they don't seem to hate each other. And for Yul, since Grett is likely supporting Allie, I have Yul supporting Rhea. Yes, I'm aware that Yul didn't really like Rhea throughout the season. However, if there's someone that Yul likes less than Rhea, it's Connor. It's well known that Yul doesn't like Connor, especially since Yul thought that Connor voted for him back in episode 4. And since Rhea essentially spent the last few episodes tormenting Connor, that might be enough to earn Yul's support. So in conclusion, I think Alec gets the support of Hunter, Ellie, Tess, Gabby, and Grett, with Hunter likely stepping up as Allie's helper in the final challenge. Meanwhile, Jake gets the support of James, Lake, Miriam, Ashley, Tom, Aiden, Alec, and Connor, and either Ashley or Tom gets picked as Jake's helper. I personally would pick Ashley, although I think it's definitely possible that Jake picks Tom instead. And for Rhea, she only gets Fiore and Yul's support, and due to Fiore's weak challenge performances, I think Rhea picks Yul as her helper in the challenges. I think this is a realistic division between the eliminated campers, and if my predictions turn out to be correct, then this could make the final challenge really interesting. And that about does it for this video. What did you think of the video? Do you agree with my thoughts? Do you disagree? Which finalist do you think will get the most supporters? Either way, please let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like the video, click subscribe if you really like the video, and for some ending words of wisdom. Make sure to work on your leg strength and ankle strength, because you never know when you may need to hop on one leg while traversing a maze. Thank you, and farewell.